Hello, Neil. Nice to see you. For people in the ward that may not know, this is Councillor Neil Buckley. He's one of our 3 ward councillors. Most people in this area will know Neil from all different kinds of things, sorting out housing and potholes and all things to do with the ward. Neil is one of our 3 fantastic ward councillors, and really grateful to have you today. Thank you so much for agreeing to have a little chat. Yeah, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the first question I wanted to ask you is, I want to know a little bit about the before times, before your public service life. What was your life before? What did you do before you were a councillor? Like, where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in Bramley, over in West Leeds. My family tended to live in that neck of the woods. And my grandparents my maternal grandparents actually lived over in sort of Carvley, Idle, towards Bradford, that sort of thing. So I spent the first, 18, 19 years of my life over there.
Oh, so you're Leeds, very much from Leeds. I'm not.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
People remind me all the time I'm not from here.
You noticed.
Yeah, I know. Strange accent kind of gives it away. So tell me a little bit about your life sort of before you were a councillor. I know that we sort of talked before about you worked in sales, like worked in sort of a commercial life. Like, what was that like?
Well, nearly all my working life, I was involved in commercial floor coverings. And it sounds like a good conversation stopper because people say, oh, really? But it's a kind of thing that you see in hospitals and schools and commercial buildings. And I was latterly in sales management in that kind of field. So you're working on quite big projects. One of the ones actually, which I'm probably rather proud of, as a matter of fact, is if you go into what we still call the new bit of the infirmary, the kind of round entrance bit at the top of the road there, all that building is all my contract. And that went down about 1996, something like that. And it still looks quite reasonable. So I'm quite pleased about that.
Oh, that's amazing. You know, everyone's got like a little bit of either St James's or LGI kind of story. That must be quite nice, actually. Did you enjoy doing that? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I think with all things, and I think some people will probably identify with this, it's all very well for a given time. And then there probably comes a time when things change, different methods arise, and you actually think, you know, I'm not enjoying this as much as I did. And that really is when I made the move into local politics.
Which is, yeah, sort of ties into my next question about your decision to do that. So public service, whether people acknowledge it or not, is difficult. It's a difficult and challenging role, and it comes with all sorts of complexities and nuances, and it's complicated. So what inspired you to make that sort of decision? What or who inspired you? Was there a particular moment you thought, yeah, I think I can do this?
I'm not sure I can. It's one of those things really where it was a combination of things. I'd always been interested in politics, in big P politics, if you like, but also in local politics, because going back to my previous life in sales, one of my fascinations in life has always been meeting people and different kinds of people. And there's absolutely no difference really in the two, either the old commercial life or this life, because you can actually bump into a retired judge and be talking about his particular problems, as I did the other month, and the same day talking to a single mother who lives, let's say, on the Lingfields, who's got problems with damp in a council flat. And it's just fascinating, the kind of people who you meet and try to help in some way.
I mean, I suppose sort of leading on from that, really, like I've kind of baffled by it, really. I think it's an incredible sort of act of sacrifice, I guess. I think it's a complicated job. I mean, you clearly really enjoy it. You clearly sort of really enjoy sort of meeting people, but what is it that a councillor does, if you could kind of summarise what you do as one of our local ward councillors?
Well, a simple way of maybe looking at it is to kind of split it into two. So you've got life in the civic hall and you've got life outside in the ward. And the ward is all about what I've just described. People have all sorts of problems. And I've had a fascinating inbox this week, actually, because one or two confidential type things, which are quite interesting, but distressing for the people involved. And also what we would say were routine things. People complain about parking, about trees and all sorts. And there are also so many issues that arise from a little topic. It becomes a big thing. And then down in the civic hall, where you've actually got, if you like, party politics, although even then you have things like scrutiny boards, planning and licensing committees, which are all party. And although that's probably a little bit more in the theory than the practice, but nevertheless, all councillors of all parties come to an agreement about various things. But for instance, yesterday we had full council, which was on Zoom. Now, obviously, we're hoping that this will be one of the last meetings that we have to do in this way, because it's dreadful, because you can make a speech for 3 or 4 minutes and you're literally talking to the kitchen wall. And of course, you get no reaction, no body language, nobody shouts out rubbish, or nobody shouts out, that's a good point. There's just nothing. And it's absolutely dreadful. So it's a complete mix, you know.
Do you enjoy that part of it? Do you enjoy the sort of the debate and the challenge and the kind of talking people round? Do you enjoy that part of it?
Oh, I do. Yes, I really do. I mean, there are probably, you know, we've got 23 councillors in our group. The other opposition parties have in the teens. So, and the Labour administration has about 50, whatever it is. So they have a majority. And obviously, when it comes to an important vote like yesterday on the budget, you know, you're not going to get the opposing party, 2 or 3 of them, to suddenly say, oh, that's interesting, I'll vote for that. You know, that's not going to happen. But there are other areas where even if we lose the vote, which oppositions do, nevertheless, you can actually see minds ticking over, thinking, well, actually, that's not a bad point. And this is the great thing about it. It's not all just about the vote. It's about just making people think a little bit.
And it's kind of interesting, isn't it? I mean, politics is a strange world to be in at the moment. I think it's quite sort of polarized, and you know, he said this, you know, it's quite. But do you get on with your kind of opposition colleagues? Are there sort of like, do you develop friendships and you have things in common with them?
Well, you do. And I remember my predecessor, Ronnie Feldman, he said to me, you'll make more friends with the opposition than you do with your own group.
Gosh.
And that's not strictly true. But I've actually just sent an email this morning to a Labour councillor who came on at the same time as me. And so we went to sort of initial training sessions and that kind of thing. And she's just joined the executive board, which is an important role to undertake, and she deserves it. And she's a very pleasant person. And so on a friendly basis, I've just sent her a note saying, well done, you deserve it.
Oh, that's nice. It's so nice to hear that. I think we all watch sort of the news and we watch, you know, House of Commons, and it all just seems, you know, a bit shouty and stuff. So it's really nice to hear that, actually. Like,
well, I think you have to remember is that they're all shouting, and of course people sometimes say stop shouting and all this, but actually that's the sound of democracy. It's the sound of freedom, that you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to push ideas to one another. Because in the House of Commons and the mini version, which is the Civic Hall in Leeds, when we've all finished shouting at each other, we all go for a pint. and so human life goes on.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice. That's nice to know. So we are, nearly a year into the pandemic now, and these strange lockdowns and life as we know it is paused, not necessarily ended, but paused. we obviously have watched the news and watched the sort of the count of people dying, and in fact, it's been awful. It's been a really horrendous thing. And I know certainly in this war that there will be people that will have been affected by whether it's their mental health or having to homeschool or lost their jobs. There's all sorts of negatives, really awful things that have happened to people. But there've been, in my opinion, quite a lot of positive things that have come from this. What do you think have been the positives that have come from this strange last year?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you look at the deaths, which are tragic, which every death is. And also you look at what I think is going to come down the line in the next 1 year, 2 years and so on, which is a lot of mental health problems and maybe cancer referrals which haven't been as urgently dealt with as they would have been normally, all that kind of thing. I think we're going to see that increasingly in the next period. But in terms of positives, one of the things that people have had to do really is to knock on their neighbours' doors. We had a situation New Year's Eve actually, which was absolutely freezing, if you remember, freezing cold. And one of the neighbours said, we're not all going to kiss each other, we're going to stand apart, but we all stood in the street and had a glass of champagne at midnight, and it was absolutely freezing. But there were 2 or 3 people who were newish, who immediately were known to everybody else. And I think it has generated this slight feeling of more neighbourliness. And actually, to be fair, areas like Alwoodley are already well known for all the volunteering and the neighbourhood networks and all this, but it's become even more intense really. And so if you want to take a positive, I think that has to be it.
Yeah, I hope that carries on. I think it will, actually. I think I do agree with you. I think there's definitely a sort of, I went for a walk the other day, actually, just went around the block on my own, kind of got bored of the kids. It's like, I'll walk around the block. It was sort of late at night. It was a guy just stood in his garden drinking a cup of tea that had come out for some fresh air, and it's, oh, hello. And usually you wouldn't sort of get that. You just kind of carry on walking past. But yeah, I agree. I hope that continues. So last question, what makes you happy?
Well, this is interesting, isn't it? My wife's downstairs, so I better say the right thing. But I've been married for 38 years, and it's a happy marriage. That makes me happy. And I think it's fair to say that you know, she's had a difficult time in this lockdown. And I think partly because lots of the things that, if you like, make me happy, like meeting people, going on holiday, going to restaurants, going to functions, meeting lots of different segments and people in different ways of life. My wife does a lot of, well, she is the chairman of the parish council. She does a lot of volunteering work, which makes her happy in mind shops and another one, I can't remember the name of it now, but it'll come to me. And unfortunately, all the things that make us happy, if you like, in that sense, have been abolished. So it's not been easy, but that applies to thousands and thousands of people. But I think this is the point. Oh, and also sport. I actually still play squash, which I love. Obviously, that's not allowed at the moment. So I'm just going to, as soon as that is allowed again, I want to get back on that squash court.
So in June, if all being well and we've kind of found our way out of this strange thing in June, when things start to emerge a bit more, is that the first thing you'll do, is get your squash racket and go and play a game of squash?
Yeah, go and play squash, see if there's any cricket on at Headingley. I'll go up there if I can go there. And do all the things that we normally would do, go out for dinners and all this kind of thing, meet friends. This is what life is, isn't it, really?
Oh, definitely. I think it's certainly been, a reminder, I think, to take those things, to kind of yeah, appreciate the things that we haven't been able to do. And I think everyone's going to be really excited. I think get to the pub, maybe. Yeah, it's been definitely an interesting year. I think we'll wrap up there, Neil, but thank you so much for speaking to me. Like, I suppose the reason that we've decided to do these interviews with various people in the ward is just, I mean, I've missed it. I've missed sort of talking like you, talking to everybody, different kinds of people from all different walks of life. And it's just, yeah, it's really nice to have a proper chat. Usually we're talking about living local things and the building and all sorts of things, but it's nice to sort of,
well,
yeah.
I was just going to say one thing which I read the other day, and it reminded me. I had read it before actually, and it was about Adlai Stevenson campaigning in the 1950s in America, and he'd made a speech, and a woman rushed up to him and said, "Mr. Stevenson, you have the support of every thinking person," and he said, "Madam, that isn't enough. I need a majority."
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm going to have to use that. That's so good. Oh, Neil, it's so lovely to speak to you, and have like a really good rest of your day. And
Thank you.
speak to you soon.
All right, Kate. Thank you.
Bye.